Hi, this is Beth Billings from Around the Table Yarns, and tonight we are working on the November hat from Kelbourne Woolens Year of Hats. The Kelbourne Woolens November hat is knitted out of Germantown yarn, which is an American wool product that is not superwash. Each skein has 220 yards, and this pattern by Megan Kelly calls for one skein. They give a gauge here. It's a little bit fuzzy. Go down in. So the gauge is one pattern repeat, which varies from 18 to 24 stitches, is 3.5 inches long. Each pattern repeat of 18 to 24 stitches is 3.5 inches wide on the larger needles. And the pattern row gauge is 23 rounds equals 4 inches in the main hat pattern on the larger needles, and that's after blocking. They recommend using a size 5 and a US size 7 circular needle, 16-inch long for the most part, but you finish the hat on a set of size 7 double point needles. If you check your gauge and you find that your pattern repeat or your rounds are much different than these measurements, you should probably change your needle size. This hat uses charts, and we will be making cables and bobbles. It's worked in the round from the bottom up, and the crown shaping is completely written out in the pattern. There are abbreviations written out up here that tell you how to make the cables and how to make bobbles. And they also have a web address for any other commonly used abbreviations, but we will cover those and demonstrate them on this video. The November hat has a very brief directions. Here you can see that it's a couple of lines for the brim and the body, and then the decreases for the crowns are specifically written out with just a little bit of information for finishing. So let's get started looking at the charts. To begin, you'll cast on 90 stitches and join them in the round on your smaller size needles, which I have done, and I'm working through the brim chart at the moment. So the ribbing chart here is read from right to left, beginning where the number is. So the number 1 denotes the first round, the number 2 denotes the second round. The plain square is a knit stitch, the horizontal line is a purl stitch, and the twist that looks like a ribbon is a knit 1 through the back loop, or a twisted knit stitch. So this is a 9-stitch repeat. There are 90 stitches in the hat, so there's 10 of these repeats across. In the first round, you knit the first 2 stitches and then purl 1, knit through the back loop, purl 1, knit through the back loop, purl 1, knit through the back loop, purl 1, and then you repeat. In the second round, those plain knit stitches are cabled with the cable leaning to the right. So let's demonstrate the 2 ribbing stitches. So I have come to the last section of a round 1 of my ribbing, and you can see the right twist cable and these prominent ribs. And the reason these ribs are so prominent is because of the twisted knit stitch. So let's just see how that looks. So this round, I knit 2, as usual. I purl 1, and then the knit 1 through the back loop, instead of going in here and opening up the stitch normally, I go into the back leg, which twists the stitch once to the left. So by going, just running my needle down into the center of that stitch and to the back, I can make an easy twisted stitch. And that's what makes this rib prominent. It turns it, it tightens it, and it makes it more prominent as it lays on the surface of your knitting. And so you're going to do that for the 9 stitches. So it's the knit 2, purl 1, knit through the back loop, knit, purl 1, knit through the back loop, purl, knit TBL, purl. And then I've come to the last of my 9 stitch repeats. So knit 2, purl, knit through the back loop, purl. Again, knitting through the back loop sometimes feels tricky because you're kind of searching for it, but if you just run the tip of your needle down into the stitch and to the back, that's an easy way to find it. All right, I'm slipping my beginning of round marker. So now in the pattern, it does tell you to transfer the first stitch to a cable needle, hold it to the back, knit the next stitch, and then knit the stitch off of the cable needle. But I'm going to just show you a quick and dirty trick, which is if you don't mind a little looser cable, you can go into the stitch that's on the left knitwise. So I'm just going into that stitch as though I were knitting it, wrapping and bringing it through, but not taking the stitch off the needle. Then I pivot my needle into the first stitch knitwise, wrap it, bring it through, and now I'm going to take both of those stitches off the needle. And that makes a right twist without having to go and grab your cable needle. And then you continue. So purl 1, knit 1 through the back loop, knit through the back loop, purl 1, knit through the back loop, and then I'll just show you that cable technique again. So I just find it easier not to have to go find my cable needles. So I'm going to go into the second stitch from the end of the left needle, wrap it around, and I'm bringing that loop through the stitch that's on the needle. I'm not bringing it between the stitches. I'm bringing it through just like I normally would. It's just I'm working 1 stitch over. So then I pivot the point between the stitches and into the first one, wrap, and bring through. So I have these 2 stitches laying on my right hand needle, and I have 2 stitches that they're still attached to on the left hand needle. I'm just going to sweep those off the left hand needle, and now I have a right leaning twist. And then I can finish that section. So I'll do that for the rest of the 4 sections, and we'll come back. The brim is complete when you have done 5 repeats of the rounds 1 and 2 of the ribbing, plus 1 more round 1. So I've just finished my last round 1, and now I need to change needles to a larger needle. So at this point, I'm going to set my beginning of round marker to the side so I don't lose it. So it's just sitting here waiting for me. And I'm going to begin my round 1 of the pattern chart, the body chart. And this looks a little different, and I just want to work through this with you again. So it's actually exactly the same kinds of stitches as we saw in the ribbing chart, but now in place of the purl 1, knit through the back loop, purl 1, knit through the back loop, you can see it's now purl 3, knit through the back loop, purl 3. and then it repeats the cable, the purl 3, the knit through the back loop, the purl 3. So this is exactly the same number of stitches as my 9-stitch repeats, but now it's an 18-stitch repeat. So where there are no stitches, all you do is skip from here to here. There's just nothing in between. And the reason it looks like this chart, you can see zeros here or circles. These are yarn overs. Yarn overs are an additional stitch. So when you work this row, you'll do the cable and you'll knit 1, 2, 3, and they'll actually be right over these 1, 2, 3. And then before you do this stitch, you'll make a yarn over. So it pushes these stitches over one. And so on a chart on paper, this is how it's written out. And then you'll come back and you'll do a plain row, again, following the stitch patterns. And then you'll do 2 yarn overs, and that pushes it out again on both sides. And then 2 more yarn overs, bring it all the way to where, so it's filled in 1, 2, 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3 stitches. And then on this side, 1, 2, 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3 stitches. So you're adding 6 stitches total to the 9 that you had. Sorry, the 8, 7. You're adding 6 stitches total, and that makes the whole of the repeat wider. And then you'll start to bring it in with these knit 2 together and SSKs. And so it will create a lace motif that in the picture looks something like a leaf. Okay, so those are happening on one side, and on the other side, you're getting these bobble features. So it's 4 bobbles on either side of the cable. So you've got the lace motif growing and decreasing, and then on the other side, the bobble motif. And so if you look at the pattern, if you look at the chart, you can see the bobble motif here. So the yellow circles are bobbles. So nothing happens on this side. It's just a kind of a ribbing with bobble decoration. And this is a leaf motif. And then they switch and you get the leaf motif with the bobble on this side. And so this is a full repeat. This is the whole body of the hat, and it's repeated only once. So we're going to be working just 28 rows up to the top of this chart. So what does each of these rows look like? Let's see. So here we are, we're at the beginning of a section here. So I'm going to do the cable and then purl 3 and then knit a twisted stitch, purl 3, the cable, purl 3, knit a twisted stitch, purl 3. So my cable, again, I go to the 2nd stitch from the end and knit into it normally, but don't take the stitch off, knit into the one next to it. And then I'm going to purl 3, tuck this out of my way. 1, 2, 3. Knit a twisted stitch in the middle. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do the cable. 1, 2, 3, purl. Twisted stitch. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so these 2 rows repeat, and then they're the same as none of the other rows. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video and then come back when I'm ready to do round 3. Beginning round 3, we start again with the cable, purl 2, and then make a bobble, knit the twisted stitch, make a bobble, purl 2, and then over here we're going to have a yarn over. So switch over my beginning of round. I'm going to go into the first stitch as we've been doing, and then I'm going to go into the second stitch. Now if you leave this loose, it makes it kind of loose. So if you tighten up the stitch, you're going to have a little bit less looseness on these twists. So I'm going to purl 2, and then to make a bobble, so I'm making a bobble into this purl stitch, I'm going to move my yarn to the back as if to knit. I'm going to knit into this leg. I'm going to move the yarn, without taking the old stitch off, I'm going to move the yarn back to the front, purl into the same leg, move the yarn back to the back, knit for a third time into the same leg. Now you can slip the left needle into the backs of those stitches and wrap around like that to create a purl 3 together. That's my dog finding something. So that's a way to purl 3 together without turning, but I'll show it, and then you can transfer that stitch back to the right needle. And then you're going to knit a twisted stitch. If you want to do it the old-fashioned way, which is just fine, again, you're going to knit, purl, knit into that one stitch, turn it, put your right hand needle purlwise, wrap around as you normally would. Make sure you keep them all on there. And with tension, you're going to bring that needle back through, turn it back, transfer it to the right hand side. And it's really just a very slight texture. All right, so we're going to purl 2 and get back to the cable. Okay, so we've done the 2 bobbles, purl 2, we've cabled again, and now we're going to purl 2, 3, and then the yarn over is after purl stitch. So if you're going to do a full yarn over after purl stitch, then I recommend you go behind the needle and then back, moving the yarn as though you were putting it in position to knit. So you're wrapping the yarn from the front to the back and once more around the needle. That's a full yarn over, and then work the yarn over in the back. So that's not how I would normally do a yarn over between a knit stitch and a knit stitch. I would normally do that by coming forward as if to purl and then wrapping it around back to the front, or just bringing it front and then going into the stitch to purl. But when you're going from a purl stitch to a knit stitch, you want to have the same kind of length. All right, so then I knit into the back of that loop. Sorry, you don't knit into the back of that loop, you knit normally. So here it is again, around to the back and then to the front so that I end up with the yarn in back. There's a full wrap around my needle, and then you knit normally into this stitch, not twisted. And then you'll purl the 3 remaining of the section. So let's just do that one more time to make sure everybody caught it. So the cable is knitting into the 2 stitches. And I do give it a little tug in between the stitches so they're not too loose. And then you're going to purl 2. And then into this purl stitch, we're going to make a bobble. So we're going to knit into the front, purl, and then knit into the same stitch. Now I do a little knitting backwards trick where I stick my left needle into the centers of those stitches and push it up below. I wrap around that needle and then I kind of pull the needles apart a little bit so I can catch that strand and bring it through, slide the 3 stitches off, and then slide that 1 stitch back to the right. So I don't like to have to turn things back and forth, and that's my shortcut. But if you don't want to take a shortcut, then you're going to knit this stitch, purl this stitch, knit this stitch, turn it around, put the right needle into the fronts of the 3 stitches on the left needle, purl them together, transfer that stitch back to that needle, and you can turn back and you've got the same stitch. All right, and then we'll finish our purling. So we have 2 more purls there. Purl, purl, and we're back at the cable. This is the middle cable. So again, I'm not going to go find my cable hook. I'm just going to cable it right onto the needle. Then purl 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to yarn over. And to do this yarn over, I want to wrap it behind and back in front. And then I knit the twisted stitch normally and purl the 3. And so that's the beginning of my patterning. In addition, this pattern has you make SSKs, which are left-leaning decreases, and right-leaning decreases. So I'm just going to demonstrate what an SSK looks like and what a knit 2 together looks like so that you will know what those mean when you come to them. An SSK is where you slip the first stitch knitwise, slip the second stitch knitwise, put the left needle into the fronts of those 2 slip stitches, and then work, oh, I didn't have my yarn in the back, and then work the 2 stitches together so they are knit together and they lean to the left. When you, you're worked together, but they lean to the left. When you knit 2 stitches together, you move your right needle to the left-hand side of the second needle from the end of the left needle. So you move it to the left side of this second stitch. You put your right needle into both stitches, wrap around the back and bring it through. And you can sort of see that this one leans into the left a little bit and this one leans to the right. So these are directional decreases, and that's what creates this nice patterning that goes into the center. The last thing I want to show you is this double decrease that happens up here. So when you get to the last part of your hat, instead of reading the chart, we'll be reading the rows written out, and you'll see a cable and then purl 2 and then an S2KP, purl 2 and then a cable. So that refers to here, there will be a cable here, and then purl 2, and then the S2KP is for these 3 stitches. and it's going to turn them into one. And the way that you do that is, and it's right over exactly as this is, it's right over that line of knit stitches. And so you're going to see if you slip those two, so this is S2KP, slip two together knitwise. So I just slipped them off to the right hand needle, knit the next stitch, and then put the front, sorry, put your put your left needle tip into the fronts of the two slip stitches. I pull them towards me to stretch them out a little bit as I pull them off. And when you do that, it decreases the two stitches on either side, centering on the second stitch. And that is a centered double decrease. And so it makes a really lovely, almost arching effect in this pattern. So you can see that here, that the decreases are happening into this line of stitches in such a way that the line stays prominent. And so that means it's important to carefully follow. There's 5 sections like this. And so you're going to repeat each of those sections, each of those central double decreases, one time per 10 sections, so per 10 repeats. And then that will give you 80 stitches. And then you'll have a plain round where you're following the pattern. And then you'll have a decrease round, and that again will reduce by 10 stitches. And then a plain round where you're just following the pattern, and then a decrease round. Notice the decrease rounds are always the cabled round. And that continues until you only have 5 stitches left at the end. So if you have any questions or concerns about this project, please do call Around the Table Yarns 216-230-9224, or get in touch with us through email, info@aroundthetableyarns.com. And I hope you enjoy making the November hat. Next month, we are doing the February hat, and it's our last one for the year of hats. We did December earlier in the year. So there we go. Enjoy, and I hope you have a great time.